Good morning, everyone. When it comes to this topic of the Kill the Boer chant, Julius Malema and the EFF's racist and extremist rhetoric, it feels like at some point people might give up trying to bring attention to this issue, but that's not where AfriForum find ourselves. We will continue to bring attention to these issues until justice wins in the end, and it will win in the end. But what I want to do specifically is when you look back at many years of transgressions, hate speech, corruption allegations, support for violence, incitement of violence, it all starts blurring together. People start forgetting all the horrific things that have been said by individuals such as Julius Malema. So I want to use this opportunity to just refresh a lot of people's memory, because it seems like a lot of people have forgotten actually what has been said and done by extremists such as the EFF. Calling for the murder of people based on their skin color, promoting illegal land occupations and confiscating people's property, refusing to rule out the possibility that you may call in the future for the slaughtering of a racial group based on their skin color, saying that you will arm terrorist groups such as Hamas if you get into power, denying a violent crime phenomenon exists because the victims are white. All of these are considered disgusting extremist rhetoric in any civilized or decent society. Yet, unfortunately, why then is it tolerated by some, even excused, even celebrated by some in South Africa when the EFF and Julius Malema do it? The recent Equality Court ruling that found Julius Malema guilty of hate speech simply confirmed what AfriForum and others have been saying for many years. And that is that Julius Malema and his EFF party are guilty of inciting racial hatred and race-based violence. When it comes to 2025 has been quite a watershed year in regards to Julius Malema's violent rhetoric being exposed to the global stage. And the international response to hearing and seeing this type of rhetoric has been near unanimous: disgust and shock. Very strong in contrast with many political leaders in South Africa who seem unbothered by this type of rhetoric, even entertained and in support of this type of rhetoric. Something else shook the world in 2025, and that was witnessing how the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the South African government and some South Africans in the comment class and farther excuse and even justify the EFF's extremist rhetoric and incitement of violence. It not only shocked the world, it boggled the minds of people internationally. They couldn't understand what they were seeing here. A leader of South Africa refusing to condemn a chant for murder, as Theo de Jager has summed up. The international pressure, or the international exposure of Malema's extremism by organizations and individuals like AfriForum and others, has already had positive repercussions globally. The UK government's 2025 decision to reject Julius Malema's visa is only one of them. It is just the beginning. It's the ears of the hippopotamus when it comes to what is coming, and the chickens coming home to roost for Malema and the EFF. More serious and widespread repercussions are, however, necessary, and this is why AfriForum had this dossier set up and created, to ensure that more repercussions follow. And AfriForum therefore tasked our private prosecution unit and our research department to put this document together that will be available from today. This document documents all Malema's transgressions, hate speech, and radicalism over the years, from corruption allegations, incitement of violence and land grabs, promoting the confiscation of people's property, support for terrorist organizations and terroristic acts, and more. AfriForum's team of experts put together this dossier to spread far and wide on the international stage, not just by AfriForum, but by anyone that wants to download it and spread it themselves to both laymen and professional and significant peoples of interest alike. The full dossier, as I said, will be available on our website and social media, and you will be able to download it and spread it far and wide. But I want to give you a little bit of a summary so that you know what you will be spreading. When it comes to particularly the hate speech and incitement of violence of Julius Malema and the exposure of it to the world, one principle reigns supreme. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that's why AfriForum wants to ensure that a bright light is shone on this issue. So let's start off with the incitement of violence. Julius Malema is most infamous in South Africa and after 2025 abroad as well for the hateful chant, "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer," that he still performs to this day. And this is a chant that directly incites violence against farmers and the white minority in South Africa, Afrikaners in particular. In 2023, a clip went viral worldwide of Julius Malema chanting "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer" in a stadium filled with 100,000 of his supporters chanting it with him. A clip that President Ramaphosa was confronted with in the White House this year by Donald Trump. And a clip for which President Ramaphosa had no answer. His only response was an expression of shock and denialism, and maybe some giggles from his delegation there, laughing when they hear a chant from a politician chanting about murdering their country's citizens based on their identity. I don't think this is a laughing matter. I don't think anyone with a working moral compass thinks this is a laughing matter. When it comes to what President Ramaphosa could have done in that moment, it's very simple. He could have simply condemned the chant, distanced himself from it, saying that he condemns it in the strongest sense. And he can't hide behind the fact that the chant is not, that the court made the chant legal in South Africa, seeing as there are many things in South Africa that are not illegal, but that are very clearly wrong. Racism, for example, is not technically illegal in South Africa, but if you are asked whether you condemn racism and whether you view it as wrong, I can very easily say it is wrong and I condemn it. But when a president is confronted by a chant that calls for the murder of his country's citizens, he doesn't really have any words for it. He just looks shocked. He even denies that this is any really a serious issue at all. The claim that "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer" is not and has never been a direct call for violence was also masterfully dismantled by investigative journalist James Myburgh in his research document titled "The Many Lies Around Kill the Boer," and that's available on the website Politics Web, and I encourage people to go read it in its entirety. It is a masterful exposure. I encourage everyone to not just read it, but to keep it as a reference when you're ever confronted by the lie that this chant has nothing to do with killing. Very much has a bloody history to do with killing. As Mayberg documents in his research document, when Mkhonto sees where soldiers were being taught songs and chants in exile in the 1980s, calling for the shooting and killing of Boers and farmers, it was ANC policy for white farmers and farms to be targeted by its military wing MK. This is a well-documented history. Farmers were clearly designated as military targets and therefore framed as legitimate enemy targets by the ANC at the time when this chant was being done. The claim that these songs or chants were not meant literally and just metaphorically by those who composed and first sung them, James Myburgh demonstrates, is simply historically untrue. As I said, go read the document for yourself. The document is titled "The Many Lies Around Kill the Boer," and that's for the full history. The 2022 Kill the Boer case of AfriForum versus Malema also serves as a key source of evidence of Malema's extremist hateful views. When Malema was asked under oath during this court case whether white people can be victims in South Africa, he very strongly answered, "No, not at the current moment. No, 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 no," end quote. So according to Julius Malema, an elderly woman that was brutally tortured to death on her farm is not a victim in his eyes if her skin color happens to be white. This is a deeply disturbed and sick individual, and to make such a claim. But he made it proudly. Even though Malema made a plethora of disturbing, heinous, and dangerous remarks during his cross-examination, one in particular stands out in regards to its sinister nature. Referring to past comments of Malema, where he said on more than one occasion that we are not calling for the slaughtering of white people, at least for now, Advocate Oppenheimer asked whether Malema would pledge that he would never call for the slaughtering of white people. Malema shockingly refused. When he is asked whether it could be him in the future who makes a call to racial violence, he testifies that he may call for the slaughtering of white people in the future. He cannot rule out the possibility. Now, if Kill the Boer chant has nothing to do with farm murders and nothing to do with killing people literally, why can't Malema pledge that he will never call for the killing of people based on their skin color or their profession if they are farmers? I can very easily make a similar pledge, where I, Ernst van Zyl, pledge that I will never call for the slaughtering of black people. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. Clearly for Mr. Malema, it's a very difficult thing and very clearly an impossible pledge to do. And that raises very serious questions about what Julius Malema intends regarding chants like kill the Boer, kill the farmer. It's just a metaphor. That's the easiest pledge to do in the world, to promise that you will never call for people to be murdered. When asked whether he would endorse the use of violence to achieve the EFF's revolutionary aims, Malema responded in his cross-examination, and his words, "When the time comes and the conditions on the ground necessitate that arms must be taken, we will do so without hesitation." End quote. Later, Oppenheimer asked Malema if he is scared of killing. Malema responds, "I'm not scared of killing. A revolutionary is a walking killing machine." End quote. This has a strong parallel with Malema's hate speech at the EFF rally in the Western Cape that he was now found guilty of hate speech for in 2022, when he said that EFF supporters must never be scared to kill and that a revolution demands that at some point they must be killing, because killing is a part of the Revolutionary Act. Is this how someone speaks who when he chants about murdering people, he's just being metaphorical? You're going to have to make some type of argument there, but I don't envy the position of those who try to justify that argument. Furthermore, during a televised news interview in April 2016, Malema stated, "And if the need arises for us to take up arms and fight, we will fight. We will run out of patience very soon, and we will remove this government through the barrel of a gun." End quote. That metaphorical sounds very literal to me. During AfriForum's 2022 Kill the Boer court case, Malema's twisted view of history and his desire to hold people collectively accountable for crimes that they did not commit based on their race was also exposed. Oppenheimer asked Malema whether he still believes that, in his words, and I quote, "all white people are criminals and should be treated as such," as he has stated in the past. Malema answered, yes. Malema was also asked whether he would stop singing Kill the Boer if he saw that there was a risk that singing it would lead to people killing others. Malema answered, no. AfriForum presented to the court as evidence a farmer whose wife was murdered in front of him and who has now paralyzed himself after the attack. This farmer testified that whenever he hears the song Kill the Boer, it brings back the memory of that day. He broke into tears in the court, telling his story. When Malema was asked whether hearing that heart-wrenching story, that traumatizing story, motivated him to stop singing Kill the Farmer, Malema responded, no. Malema was asked, so that individual case would not move you, the case of the farmer whose wife was murdered in front of him and him being paralyzed in the attack? Malema responded, no, I'm not moved. Later, he repeats, I said I'm not moved. I said I'm not moved. Let me repeat 5 times. I'm not moved by the case that you brought here. I'm not moved, and that will make me lose this case, then let me lose it. I'm not moved. End of quote. Keep in mind that this is his cold response to hearing that story from that traumatized farmer. who told the court that hearing "Kill the Boer" causes him great distress. This is a sick, hateful individual, and anyone who says anything otherwise needs to really do some deep reflection. A sick individual glorifies violence, especially if the targets are white, who he very clearly hates. When you read these statements by Malema under oath, it is no wonder that in a letter to Malema, the UK Visas and Immigration Centre made it clear in 2025 that its decision to refuse his visa was based on AfriForum's 2022 Equality Court Kill the Boer case. In their rejection letter to Malema, the UK government directly referred to his statements calling for the slaughter of white people in South Africa, as well as his 2022 court case testimony where he hinted that it could be an acceptable option in the future. And that was their reasoning for their decision. During the launch of the EFF as a political party in 2013, EFF supporters displayed various racist posters and banners. Again, one of these examples of racism by the EFF that's been swept under the rug. A lot of people don't even know about this incident. One of these posters read at their launch, "A revolutionary must become a cold-killing machine motivated by pure hate." Well, they've clearly made that very clear, that they are motivated by pure hate. Another poster read, "Honeymoon is over for white people in South Africa." In February 2018, the EFF was rallying to remove Nelson Mandela Bay's Mayor Athol Trollip from his position. And during this campaign, Malema told a crowd of supporters, "We are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness." In September 2019, Malema paid tribute to former Zimbabwean dictator Robert Mugabe on social media. This post included a video with quotes by Mugabe, including the quote, "The only white man you can trust is a dead white man. And our party must continue to strike fear in the hearts of the white man, our real enemy," end quote. In 2021, Julius Malema pointed his finger at a sitting member of the Pan-African Parliament and threatened that "I will kill you," showing this is not a man that speaks in metaphors. He speaks directly. He threatens directly. He tells people what he wants to do, what he intends to do. When asked in 2018 on social media whether the rumors are true that he organizes farm murders, Julius Malema responded, "Maybe, maybe not." In 2020, at a counter-protest to protest against farm murders, yes, you heard correct, there was a protest against farm murders and the EFF made a counter-protest to an anti-farm murder protest. Malema stated that, in his words, "There are no farm murders happening in South Africa," end quote. Echoing President Ramaphosa, who made the exact same claim in 2018 in New York when he told Bloomberg that there are no killing of farmers or white farmers in South Africa, end quote. Malema has also called on his supporters to illegally occupy land on many occasions. One of the first recorded incidences was in 2014, when he stated that the EFF will occupy land because we need the land. In 2016, he repeated this sentiment at an EFF rally, and when he told his supporters to occupy land to bring it back to black people, and he furthermore stated that white people have no legitimate claim to land ownership in South Africa. Malema appeared in court regarding these comments where he incited land invasions, and after appearing in court, he urged his supporters again outside the courthouse to occupy the land because the state has failed to give you the land, and the land will be taken by any means necessary, end quote. Fortunately, AfriForum were able to acquire an interdict that prohibits Malema and the EFF from inciting land grabs, but the EFF challenged this ruling all the way to the Constitutional Court, unsuccessfully, luckily. The implications of Malema and the EFF's intense desperation, 6 failed attempts to be specific, to have this land invasion judgment overturned are very disturbing. Why is the EFF so determined to be able to incite lawlessness and land invasions? So determined that they were willing to go to court 6 times and lose 6 times to be able to encourage land invasions. Maybe because these defeats to AfriForum have thrown a serious spanner into the works for what they had planned. Malema has also expressed his support for terrorist organizations and terrorist attacks. At an event held in Pretoria in 2023, where the EFF called for the closure of the Israeli embassy, Malema stated, in his words, "There's nothing wrong with what Hamas did. When you are oppressed, the only option you have is to fight, and that is what Hamas is doing. When you are oppressed, you only have one option: confront the enemy and shoot to kill, end quote. In October 2023, Malema stated the EFF, when it takes power next year, is going to arm Hamas and make sure Hamas has the necessary equipment to fight for its freedom. But this whole dossier doesn't stop with just hate speech, incitement of violence, and support for terrorist organizations and terrorist acts. It also documents all the allegations of corruption and cases of corruption that have been opened against Julius Malema and the EFF. AfriForum's private prosecution unit put together this corruption report that is attached to this dossier. The content of this document aims to motivate reasons for the Magnitsky Act to be invoked on Julius Malema. This section covers in detail, for example, the On Point scandal, where a criminal complaint was registered in 2011 at the SAPS in Polokwane against Julius Malema, Kagiso Dijaba, and Kubef Lesiba Kangwa for fraud and corruption. The document also covers evidence of racketeering activities as well as the VBS scandal and the EFF's implication herein. Where a South African mutual bank, the Venda Building Society, was declared insolvent, placed under curatorship in 2018, with South African citizens and taxpayers defrauded out of nearly 2 billion rand. In this section, the corruption section, we argue that the document sufficiently exposes facts and findings that justifiably fall within the following criteria as just cause for invoking the Magnitsky Act. 1. Illicit enrichment of individuals. 2. Misuse of public funds for private gain. 3. Bribery and kickbacks. And 4. Money laundering. In conclusion, anyone still arguing that chants like "Kill the Boer" has nothing to do with real killing should answer two simple questions. 1. Why does the main chanter of "Kill the Boer" refuse to pledge under oath that he will never call for the slaughtering of white people? And 2, why is "Kill the Boer" chanted outside of court cases where farm murder suspects are on trial, such as what happened in Senegal, if it has nothing to do with farm murders? When the above examples are considered, it casts a long shadow over President Ramaphosa, the ANC, and the South African government, who to this day refuse to take action or even condemn Julius Malema for his violent rhetoric, hate speech, and the "Kill the Boer" chant. Their inaction and silence are shameful and has shocked the world in 2025. AfriForum will continue our years-long mission to not only make Julius Malema face justice at home in South Africa, but also to expose him to the world so that he can face consequences internationally as well. It's an uphill battle, even though it shouldn't be. If you dare stand up against farm murders and the politicians that encourage them, you are lied about, you're attacked, you're smeared, even investigated for treason. But AfriForum remain unintimidated and undeterred, because this is not about politics. It's about right and wrong. And if 2025 has proven one thing, it is that injustice does not remain hidden forever. Thank you very much for everyone that tuned in for this press conference from AfriForum's side.